Ma'am, we are now live.
Okay. Dear friends, a very warm welcome to you to this ongoing KNMA online series called Revelations. The artists we hope in the course of this evening, while talking about their art practice, may reveal unspoken stories and some of the secrets that they carry. This evening, we have with us Jayashree Chakravarty from Calcutta, an artist who is well known for her soaring scrolls and installations, an artist who leaves me baffled quite often with her incredible energy and irresistible will that comes through her art making. I would like to add here, hers is also a practice of endurance, of weaving a continuous thread of imagery and preoccupations for more than 4 decades now. I'm reminded of a quote by Rainer Maria Rilke that he wrote in 1907. After all, works of art are always the result of one's having been in danger, of having gone through an experience all the way to the end, to where no one can go any further. The further one goes, the more private, the more personal, the more singular an experience becomes. And the thing one is making is finally the necessary, irrepressible, and as nearly as possible, definitive utterance of this singularity. Having studied art at 2 premier institutions, BFA at Vishwa Bharati in Shantiniketan and postgrad diploma at the Faculty of Fine Arts, MS University of Baroda, Jayashree was artist in resident at École d'Art Aix-en-Provence, if I spelled it right. Jayashree's works have been extensively been shown at KNMA. They have been collected too for their distinctive presence and unique conception and execution. She has been part of several exhibitions in India and abroad. She has been regularly showing her works at Akar Prakar Gallery in Calcutta and also at the Icon Gallery in New York, where currently I believe she is part of a group show with 4 artists, including her, Reena Banerjee, Suchitra Matai, and Nadia Kabilinke. She has won several awards, including the Raza Foundation Award in 2008, the Gujarat Lalit Kala Academy Award, the 2nd Bharat Bhavan Biennale in 1988, an honorable mention in the Asian Art Biennale in Dhaka, and she continues to live and work in Kolkata. Jayashree, a very warm welcome to you this evening, and I hope through this dialogue, we would have many more things to say that we haven't said to each other before.
Thank you.
I can't see Jayashree. Okay. Right. So Jayashree, I would like to start by asking you about your early formative years, the impressions that you still vividly carry with you. What is it that you strongly and fondly recall and connect to from your childhood? It will be interesting for the viewers to know really where you spent your childhood and what were these impressions that you are still carrying and talking about.
I'm actually from Tripura, and there is hills and lush vegetation. The jungle is there, so I always could go with my father to that kind of places. In the jungle I could walk, and there was by road that we used to travel, and the beautiful hills, the nature, the vastness of the nature was so wonderful, and I think I carry those I mean, whatever I have seen, the experiences always, and still now, it's coming into my work. And when I went to study in Shantiniketan, at that time also there is that vastness of the land, the paddy field, the blue sky, and such beautiful environment was also another thing that I was close to nature, and these experiences are they are with me, and even now that the work that I am doing, probably most of the time I am relating my work with the seen experience, with the experience that I had long time ago. Those things are coming, and because it has gone inside, and every time I am
Yes.
doing anything, that hugeness, the vastness, the freedom, everything is coming into my work.
Yes, I remember you telling me about this whole experience of a boundless space, which was completely freeing your spirit, isn't it? And then you come into Shantiniketan, and you talked about the emphasis on nature and the setting of nature, a very pastoral setting of this place. But there was a very strong academic tradition there. And though I see some of these live drawings that you have, you had shown me, and one or two are here. What do you say about where your practice or where your desire was taking you, where your creative will was taking you?
This was the formation period that I was learning. And at that point, there were live drawing that from the model we used to draw figures. But I was not drawn to that, though I like that the process that how to do the figure drawing. But every time I used to take my canvas to the paddy field, to the, first I used to go to a particular spot for several days. You draw for say about a month, whatever I want to draw ultimately, want to bring in my canvas ultimately. But before that, for a month, I used to go and I used to do pencil sketch. And then one fine day, I used to go there with my canvas and colors and everything, and I used to create that work over there only. And then I used to bring it to the studio.
Right.
In a way, like that openness, I always feel that that is what was the main thing, a main aspect that I wanted to bring in my work. And all these 5 years that I was in Shantiniketan, been doing the painting as a painting that I was bringing nature in that,
Right.
not figuration.
Yeah. So you were disinterested in one sense to continue with figuration, isn't it?
Yes, I was afraid. I couldn't do it actually properly. So I was not very good at it. In fact, I was a bad student. Till 2 years, first year and second year, I couldn't do much. From third year, I started working. But that too, I would say my teachers were great, like Somnath Hor, Sharmi Rai Chaudhary, and many more teachers, Suhas Rai. They used to teach me, and then I could understand that it's not only figure that I should do. I can do many other things, and that way I could carry.
Right. Right. So you studied in two premier art institutions of this country. You know, you were at Shantiniketan. Yes, you had great inspirational teachers over there. And then for your postgrad diploma, you went to Baroda. And I'm sure there was something very different in that environment or that atmosphere that must be, that brought another kind of learning to you. Can you speak a little bit about that?
It was very different in Baroda. First thing, I couldn't see the nature in that way, the way I used to experience in Shantiniketan. So it's a urban kind of place, like setting. And we used to work inside the studio only. And a big studio was divided into several small areas, and we used to work up there. And only one teacher, that means Manida, KG Subramanian was my guide. And of course, like I could meet at that time Nasreen Mohammadi, Vivan Sundaram, Geeta Kapoor. So many people were there and such environment, and always some artists used to come to the faculty, used to give lecture. Art historians used to come. It was absolutely a different environment, and so many things that I could learn.
Right.
And it's a kind of contemporary artists at that time, how they work, how they show the work also. Those things were very, very important to learn. So those are the things I think.
Yeah, I joined in later, but I remember it was a very open and a very receptive environment, you know. And I remember my teacher, Ghulam Muhammad Sheikh, there was Jyoti, but there were many others. And there was this very a huge emphasis on discourse and the discussion on ideas and on, you know, what is contemporary art, or even, as you said, you know, looking at a lot of work, listening to a lot of ideas that were, brainstormed over there. And I think that some of that got internalized as we were studying over there, and that have stayed in some way or the other. They have impacted us and influenced us as we went along. So tell us, when you started off, now that we saw just glimpses of how you began with live drawings, and there was a strong academic tradition there, but you found a way out to do something that was very close to your heart, you know, and you have always gestured, even in and through your practice, this whole idea of being close to nature. You know, that has always been the gesture. I'm going to quickly run through these images to just show the viewers what you were doing then. Next, please. I'm going to just quickly say, no, can you go back to the previous one? You know who I'm reminded of here? When I'm looking at these paddy fields, I remember Vincent van Gogh.
Yes.
You know, and it's amazing, the same kind of lines chasing and running, you know, and chasing one another. There is movement, there is energy, there is restlessness, you know, and there is this very strong presence of paint, you know, in this work. Can you talk a little bit about this work? Because I'm very intrigued by it.
The land over there was like Kauai is there, and then the vegetation is there, but I could paint maybe because of probably I never saw at that point. I didn't see Vincent van Gogh's work, the actual work, but from the book, that whatever I could gather, I realized that I also feel like using thick color and that impasto color that I was using, and gradually I could. It took me time. Say by fourth year, I could bring this kind of texture on the
canvas. Right. Next, please, quickly. Yeah. This is a very interesting work, Jayashree, because you're writing a paper boat on paper. So already you are doing something to the canvas, where the canvas is not anymore just paint. Am I correct? Jayashree? Hello? So while we are getting Jayashree back to speak on this work, I feel that from the very beginning, there is a sense of movement and energy in her work. She was talking about a sense of boundless space, where she is not interested in seeing nature as landscape, where she's not interested in seeing nature or capturing nature from any single vantage point. She's interested in actually moving her lens, you know, and moving through, in and through nature. And that's the kind of work she was doing. And especially in this work here, I'm already seeing that she is she's almost dispelling boundaries between drawing, painting, and many other such categories and hierarchies that existed. She wanted the canvas to become something else. She did not want the fixity of the canvas in any sense. And that's how perhaps she was driven towards the idea of moving from easel painting to really finding a space or a structure or a surface of her own, And next, please. I would wait for Jayashree for this, but I have already given an introduction of what was happening then. She had started painting, she was painting nature forms, or she was painting continuous, nature with a mobile vision, not sticking to any one place or any one location or any one site. And this was something that she was really developing in her work. But I'm very interested to know from Jayashree what triggered or what were the motivations behind or motivations behind the shift that she made to really actually make a handmade paper scroll of her desired size and shape. Like what we see here is paper installations, which actually touch the floor and are suspended from the ceiling, which are really huge and monumental, almost like cascading form. Excuse me, where is Jayashree?
Yes, I actually started these works in Aix-en-Provence in South France, called the Beaux-Arts. I was doing my residency over there, and my first thing is that there are two things happened. That I had been to Marseille also, and I saw the sailboat sails, and that was so interesting for me. And I thought that if I can do something like that, which is like many of them together, if it can stand in front of me. And another thing I felt, the land that I see, the field that I see, that if it stands in front of me, I can see it like from a different perspective. So that is the main intention that I wanted to do. And when I did it, when I started doing, I could twist it in such a way that it became a kind of sculpture, like where one can walk around it, or another way of enjoying the work came to me, like I found.
Right. Before we go to this installation, which I'm very interested in, this cascading form, and how did you make paper stand? Because most times we have heard, stories about paper being fragile, paper being delicate, but you turned paper so resilient that it actually stands and cascades like a scroll. You could even modulate it. I can see that you tweaked and turned it. You have created curves and you have turned around and created spaces within. You need to talk about this, but I have a quick question before that. Did in any way were you influenced by what was happening in 1990s in France with this movement called supports and surfaces?
Yes. I was.
Can you talk a little bit about this?
I was very much inspired by support and surface group work. That they use a lot of fabric in their work, and often they displayed it on the wall, and from the wall it came on the floor also. So there was a kind of not just wall-based painting, not just wall-based work, where they include the space. So that was very important to me. And sometimes they kept just lots of fabric and with the support of stick, putting it on the wall. So that way, that it's a new way of creating sculpture, like sculpture,
Yes.
painting and sculpture, something in between, which is very, very interesting for me. And maybe from there, whatever I was doing, that I was suspending my work from the ceiling and giving a twist into the work. So the whole thing, it's not just painting, but and it is not also exactly the sculpture in three-dimensional sculpture. So something in between. But later on, maybe like we call it installation, or maybe there are other terms I don't know. But I think. The starting point was that the inspiration from support and surface group.
Right. And so what is happening when you make, I think what must have triggered the shift was that you were now also looking at space, not just within the work, but also around it. Okay. So some way the work was actually extending outwards as well, so that the surrounding space gets affected, shaped, or, experienced in a particular way. For instance, how one would navigate our bodies between these works, in between these scrolls, which are cascading and which are falling. And there is also a lot of layering, as I can see in the work. You're using text, you're using images, maybe you're using even different kinds of mediums, to really bring them together on one surface. Let's see the next one. Yeah. Is this another work?
I created another 10 pieces for this particular work. And imageries are also also different. I use more of map element into these works.
And the process, again, you are stiffening the paper by treating it.
Yeah, there is a fabric in the
in these scrolls.
Sandwich. There is a fabric sandwiched in between several layers of papers, and lots of Nepalese paper and tissue paper are on both sides, and several layers. And within the layers, I did I used paint, and then finally on top surface there are actual imageries, the linear areas on the top.
I see. Okay. So one thing is sure, you really wanted to in some way, move out of the very finite borders of an easel painting, where the canvas becomes restrictive in some way, and you wanted a more unbounded space, also space that you could treat both sides, okay, which you cannot in in an easel painting. So you went in and out of it. You wanted to be on both sides. You wanted to keep the surface continuous in the way to spill out your imagery, spill out your ideas or thoughts or whatever those accumulated experiences were about. And hence but it's very interesting what it does to the viewer. The viewer is also in a way almost, it's mandatory for the viewer to move around it, to be able to look up and look down and, not actually be seeing it from any one static vantage point. So it becomes an immersive and experiential work in that sense, which is very interesting. It also challenges the viewer. The viewer is not supposed to see it just frontally, because there is no frontal position as such in the work. So that I find very interesting. And actually you do it more and more, as you evolve your practice. So we go to the next one, and I'm going to run through some slides, which I'm going to, we are going to now go back to your canvases, okay, which you continue to do. My question to you about these canvases is, one thing that is very, very elusive about them as well as appealing about them is that they are so dense, with imagery. It seems that there are multiple layers, there is interspersing, interlacing, you are drawing and redrawing and erasing and then drawing and then painting, then smudging, staining. There is no end to the technicalities of or the method of your working. It's so interesting because it almost feels to me, I can think of a premeditated plan that you could have, which you could just transfer onto the canvas and start painting. The painting is evolving constantly, and it's almost restless, breathless. It is so condensed with imagery. And
Several images that I've
this flux. Can you talk flux of life that you capture? How does it happen, or how do you go about, or is there something that you want to share with us about this working of yours?
Yes, several images actually, like it's not only just painting in layers, it is also drawing in layers also. So like one image, then again I'm on top, I'm using another image, and I just went on drawing and went on layering with paint. And from that time also I was using any kind of material, not any organic material, but paint wise, acrylic paint, then paint, and charcoal and crayons, whatever, and also tea stain and coffee stain that I was using from that time also. And it's like multiple layers. When I'm working at that point, I cannot make out that what it will ultimately look like. But ultimately, the whole image becomes more dense and more full of many other kind. I mean, it becomes something else totally, not the image that I try to do, not that particularly. So altogether, a different thing. And that is what I always look for, that what it can give me if there is something.
Right. But that's what is interesting. There is a struggle, and there is an exhilaration of some kind, and there is a risk, and yet there is some kind of a resolve that comes through when you look at the work. The work actually draws us, the viewers, again and again, to see secrets in them, to find out what all you're doing, what all you have buried within the layers, in the very much, in the many layers that you have actually created, the many overlappings that you have done, the kind of superimpositions that are happening, and yet, I mean, I know that I cannot do a work like this, even if I do all of this, so there is I think it's a very intuitive process, but a process where actually how you can order your chaos. That is something that is
probably I do not know how I can order this chaos.
Okay.
It just it's not in my control actually. Even if I want, I can't control.
Right.
But somehow I got to decide, yes, now I should stop and see.
And see what.
So that way, it is beyond my control actually, and it happens on its own. Even when it's not that I'm trying to do, it will happen. I think the canvas gives me direction. That the demand is from there,
right,
from the canvas, and I work accordingly.
That is why I know that in our conversations, I've always tried to use the term unpredictable technique. It's a technique that is unpredictable, but yet it works, and that's where that's your practice. Okay, so let us see some more images. Run through them. Now, just for a moment, can you go back just for a moment? You know, Jayashree, it's strange. I mean, you love messiness, don't you?
Very much. I am.
Because when I visit your studio, I see there is no place to stand, there's no place to sit, everything is there. And I see you very comfortably moving in that mess. You can actually find your way, you know, and none of us can find our way if we come there, but you can find your way. And and surely in the work you can spill tea, you can spill coffee, you have also you use mud layers, later we'll see that. And I'm seeing that there is this dribbling, there is a lot happening here, and yet it has a lot to say about our environment, which we are going to talk about soon. How you have been bringing, you know, I think that your main concern and mainstay in your work is you know, your preoccupation with earth, your preoccupation with land, your preoccupation with habitat, you know, whether those were natural shelters, whether those are cities and fascinating cities that were emerging then, and then how cities took over nature and nature started disappearing, and then this vanishing of nature, you know, vanishing of cultures, you know, many cultural markers, many villages, maybe a lot has happened, and this whole transformation and change, you know, has somehow been, you have been absorbing and you have been observing, and they are all translating into something that emerges, and then you know, that completely fills your surface. So let's see the next one. Wow. So this mapping, charting, tracing, you know, retracing, this is something that is, I think it is also somewhere associated with your love for drawing. You know, you someone who really loves lines, you know.
Yes.
Great philosophers may have said that there is no line in nature, but you see line everywhere. Yes. In nature, isn't it? And you see lines everywhere. Lines is your way to map, chart, trace, mark, you know, all this is through the lines. And so this whole labyrinth and maze of lines that you create, you know, they actually embrace so many stories, you know. The stories cannot be separated from one another, but this is life that you have observed, this is life that you must have imagined. There are many of those things that are happening. Were you ever interested in books on maps, archaeology, books on histories? Please tell us something about that, because some of your work almost look like pages of a book, you know, of an ancient book. You would just pick up a page and
sometime I worked, I have taken some images from the, very much interested in river, the drawing of the river, the map of the river.
Right.
So that also I have used a lot. And sometimes the writing part, that also I have taken from the book, and tried to write those lines. So that is like, I was trying several things and imagery. Yeah. So whatever came on my way, I tried that. But that one thing is very important, that the texture and the linear quality is the most important thing that was that I wanted to try. I wanted to put in my work.
Yeah, you actually wire, you know, things of the past and present, you know, remembered and immediate. They all actually come into and collapse into, you know, even views, aerial views, frontal views, you know. It becomes it has its own topography, I would say. You created your own topography and the personal language of it, you know. So let's see some more works. It says my internet connection is unstable, but hopefully we will be able to. Next, please. Yes. So figures and faces do appear. Yeah, this is the particular one that I was referring to in the very face of time. This almost looks like an old book, a page from an old book, you know. Can you go back, please, one moment? So there are buildings, monuments, maybe cathedrals that you have seen, plans, city plans, many, many things that are coming together here. And, you know, do you have any memory of this work? Jayashree? Hello?
Do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now, please. Go ahead. Yeah.
So, the all kind of images came into my work, like snails or grasshoppers or the constructions or flowing lines, everything, and also the textural area that I build up with white. Those, so it's all together. If it says something, that means like everything together is existing. That is what probably I was trying to bring. And I think that multiple imagery together convey the kind of situation that we are in together, all together. So that is what I try to do.
Right. Next, please. True. Yeah. Next. Very interesting work. So like you talked about that the habitat for you is not just about human beings, you know, they're not the only one who really occupy the earth. Okay. And that has been your concern. You have, right from the beginning.
This particular work that I talked about, I talked about Salt Lake, that it was growing and it was a fishery and the dead fishes are there. So the way, I mean, it was and the way it's becoming, so these two things I wanted to bring together. So this is probably one of my most favorite painting, and I tried so many things, and it's a big painting. It's large work. So a lot of things I could try in this work.
I'm very delighted that it's in our collection, in the KNMA collection. And I know that it is so predominant white, the use of white squiggles and scribbles that you have used, you know.
And several.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Several kind of white I have used. I mean, it's not one kind of, it's titanium to kind of shimmering white, then all kind of white probably I have used in this work.
Can you just go back for a second, please? I just wanted to highlight that, Jayashree, remember when we were showing this work in Nice, we were talking about, you were talking about how the aquatic life and around Salt Lake started disappearing when the Salt Lake transformed into Salt Lake City, and, you know, obstructive structures and concrete structures started coming up, and the very face of that place completely changed, you know. And the loss of so much insect life and even aquatic life, even, you know, migratory birds that were coming. And you told me the story. Till then, I was just looking at this painting and you said, you know, this is a pair of fish.
Yes.
You know, they're together, they're just overlapped, you know. It's a pair of fish who are without water. and the mark on their tail is also talking about their vulnerability and their death, isn't it? So there was this kind of a very strong, concern and statement that came through this work. I remember very clearly this conversation. Next, please. Next. Yeah, and in this set of works, you also talked about impending catastrophe when, ecological disaster happens or ecological imbalance happen. And I think when I said in the beginning that your concern about habitat is about this whole harmonious coexistence of creatures, of beings, because in your childhood you learned about it, the very interdependency of things on one another, of life, from a small life to bigger forms of life. There is a kind of chain, there is a kind of interdependence. And when that gets tinkered or disturbed, what happens is all catastrophic only. So you can talk a little bit about what happens, for instance, in the work on the left.
Yeah, this work is, I used yellow because I felt that yellow can talk about the increasing heat on Earth, and where there is no figures, only insects are there, and these are the insects that which can survive through the heat also, like they're very tough insects. So that is the only that particular insect I kept, and rest is like in smoke and heat. I mean that we are going to face maybe one in future. So that is what I thought, and I painted this particular thing.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, next please. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to first speak with you and then show the works that we displayed or we had at Nice in France. So this was a beautiful Asiatic museum in Nice where I curated an exhibition of Jayashree in collaboration with Akar Prakar, and it was called Life Will Never Be the Same. And almost something that we did, we showed 4 years ago, was like an alarm, alarm call, that life will never be the same since, what is happening now, since the pandemic and the lockdown, life is not the same anymore. We are all masked, we are all living in fear and anxiety. We have a pandemic, we are talking pollution, we cannot stop coughing, and many other things, which have made us so unsafe, becoming more with each passing day. And this was an exhibition which really brought together a series of work that Jayashree did, which was about this disappearance of other forms of life with the Salt Lake City, taking on, extending itself, and this kind of urban sprawl that happened, and the shrinkages of rivers, water bodies, became so apparent. And I think that kind of a loss really was really drew her to think about how can we really retrieve and restore nature in our lives. Okay, how can we have a balance in our lives? What do we do to do that? So I'm going to show these images, and Jayashree will talk about them. Next, please. So interestingly, this museum was also like a circular, had a circular for and it had uh, antiquities that were placed there permanently, which could not be moved from there. So in that scenario, we had to work out the exhibition around these sculptures.
Yes.
Maybe you can talk a little bit about the works.
Yes, this was really one that we were not ready for this kind of thing, that we won't be able to move the statues. And then all of a sudden we could decide that how we are going to start. So from one point we started putting them up. And then ultimately the scrolls that we would suspend around the statues, and ultimately probably we could realize that they're together, going something can convey that together they're working very, very well.
Yes.
So
yeah, they actually acquired new meaning, isn't it? Because
yes,
here we were talking about noise, we were talking about pollution, we were talking about conflict, chaos, in cities around us, or in the spaces that we are surrounded by. And the Buddha figures, completely, they were icons of composure, and so somehow there was, and this message of yours to really retrieve and to resurrect nature, to restore nature, somehow went very well. So let us see more images.
this is the Kuchinan that the name of the show was Kuchinan, and the kind of village we used to have much earlier that got washed out, like flood was there, and cyclone was there, and so and afterwards that the whole thing became a kind of water body, and which was Salt Lake, we call it Salt Lake. And then it's been filled up, and then new concrete jungles took shape over here. So this is what one is like, the map of Salt Lake, and how the houses, the buildings were coming up. That's what I did in this particular two works. And these are all mainly paperwork. Next, please. So that the water body became very, very, I mean, it was no more that kind of water body what it used to be. And gradually only the area to build houses was there. And at this moment, it's a concrete jungle. So the whole water body turned into concrete jungle. That is what I try to portray in this 9 works that I did. Next, please. These are the scrolls that we tried to put around the Buddha statues, and the one on the right, that the particular scroll was divided into two, and the Buddha statue is one can see through two scrolls that in between these two scrolls. So it's a kind of probably we try to give it a kind of feeling that the disasters and all, and then there is a peace that there through this statue that was became very obvious. So that was how we were installing the work around the Buddha statues. Next, please. Alien sphere is actually, I was very much interested in how the insects are making their nest. And it's almost the whole insect world is inside, and outer surface is very stiff and leather-like. This is about that when there is a catastrophe, then all the insects are together, and they try to hide themselves, and so this is what I try to do in this alien sphere. They're installing the work, and this is cocoon that we tried to put. Here's the cocoon in full form in Nice. About it looks like a rib cage, and we use light in such a way so that the shadow is on the wall, and it becomes more dense and talks about the rib cage more clearly. And mainly the butterflies are drawn and pasted. The Xerox copies on the paper, so, and painted in shimmery colors. Initially, the cocoon was looking very tight. I didn't open it, and more I worked on it in several times. Like I started opening up the, and it looked more like a rib cage. But initially, the first time that when I showed, it was looking like this, and it was more like just kind of closed. It was not looking like a rib cage. but gradually it started changing. Every time I installed, it took a new shape, the new look. We installed the cocoon in Mumbai in CSMBS, in a Natural History Museum. And the butterflies were almost like everything was having a kind of dialogue. That was really very interesting for me. And this one was done in KNMA, Noida, Out of the Wild, curated by a show curated by Roobina ji. And here again, it looks different, and it's according to me, the lighting was done so well.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can hear you, can't see you.
Okay, that's okay. If you can't see me, that's fine. Yeah, to quickly add that I'm sorry, some strange things are happening because there is something going on in the neighborhood. You spoke about cocoon, and this cocoon work has been shown in various places. Did you talk about the motivation behind those works?
No.
How you came to the cocoon form, how it really, what was the material that you're using? Because this is very different than the scrolls you do later, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just I used paper only to make this stiffened paper, and first time I used that aluminum strips to give it a shape and make it more sculpture-like work.
Sculpture-like.
Yes, and
but it's very. Yeah.
This is again that the insects are together, because when there is a catastrophe, I always feel that all the insects or all the creatures, they come together, they just they're scared, so
they're going to hiding.
Yeah, they're hiding. So
yeah, they're going to hiding. Yes. And when we were showing this at Chhatrapati Shivaji Museum, at the Jangir Nicholson, we showed it in the natural history section, and there were a lot of people who really enjoyed. And I know that there were questions about, because you had painted these insects, you had even done photocopies, you had used different techniques and different material to really show this a huge gathering of these insects into this cocoon. And also we talked about how we see even in urban scenarios, the hideaways and these hiding places are always these pipes, or some kind which are dark and in which they can actually go and escape the onslaught. And did you talk about, I think it was very interesting when you spoke with me about how this also to me reminds me of a spine or a rib cage,
yes.
Something of a body. And that has been also one of your interests, which becomes more pronounced with the scrolls that become translucent. So let's move on to Gime. Next, please. Earth as Haven under the canopy of love. And very, very fascinating time we had in Paris. This was also the time when next door at Centre Pompidou, Nalini Malani's huge retrospective was on, isn't it? It was really Indian women artists in Paris, so to say. Next, please. So that's the Musée Guimet, and that's Jayashree's poster out, and a workshop that she had done, which really a lot of people enjoyed, especially the elderly, I suppose, who were really enjoying working with organic material that we had collected and taken. Next, please. So can I quickly tell the story a little bit? So when we first went to see this site, it was under a project. It's called the Carte Blanche project, which is given to an artist to do a single project, a single work. And we were standing there with the director, Sophie Macario, and Reena Lat was also there from Akar Prakar. So was Jayashree, so was me. And we were all standing out there and enjoying this rotunda on the second floor. And Sophie was telling us that most artists who have put their works here have enjoyed keeping these windows open and allowing the light to come in and to actually also look out to the city. And Jayashree was just listening, and then she just had in mind, what happens if we really shut the windows? And Sophie said, that has never happened before. It might be very, very, very interesting to do that. And so Jayashree comes back, and then she first sends me these drawings where she creates an interior space. You know, she wants a very restive space inside this rotunda. And so the lights are out. We don't want the lights from outside. And then she creates this form in between, you know, and I was very fascinated by the serpentine line that she drew. And I asked her, so what are we doing? And she said, it's going to be an earth space, an earthy space, a restive space in which I will put either a large insect or an insect form or an insect home. And there will be nature all around it. Yes. And so it was. So there were 17 paper scrolls from the ceiling, not from the ceiling actually, because it was a rotunda, very, very, the height was huge, but from a particular point, there were 17 scrolls put there, and they were all backlit because they were translucent. And by this time, what Jayashree was doing was very interesting. She was actually making these handmade scrolls by combining, it's a composite of pieces of different kinds of paper and fabric and gauze. And she was actually collecting organic material, you know, which is either fallen leaves or weeds, seeds, herbs, medicinal plants, tissues, you know, strings, straws, you know, and they all were being sandwiched between layers of these paper that were glued and pasted. And it had a translucency, and they were backlit. So you actually, when they're backlit, all these things that are sandwiched and saved and retrieved and restored within the paper scrolls come alive. You're able to see them, you know, they almost look like line, dots, shapes, you know, different kinds of visual elements. And then this insect form, which was to be suspended from this ceiling, when people walk in, because it's like a cave, you know, it's like an insect home. Its interior is very important. Its exterior is like a cave. You walk in, and when people walk in, she was actually imagining that when you see the legs from below, because you will be able to see them walk in, it might make this insect crawl. It would give a feeling of movement, a sense of an insect crawling, which was so fascinating an idea. And Sophie was completely blown by that. And so I'm going to quickly show some images while we talk. Next, please. So this is how, that was on the left, extreme left, you see this cave or haven, okay, which would be a utopia of Jayashree, an imagined ideal space that she created. And all these scrolls have actually nature material, nature fragments, nature remnants. that's why I would like to say that by this time, nature became not just the subject of her art, but the substance or the material of her art as well. She was using it, she was collecting it, she got so involved and obsessed with it. I remember going to her house and seeing different kinds of insect homes which she had collected: a wasp house, a beehive, a cocoon, some other kind of thing, the baya bird nest, what not, the nesting, the whole idea of nesting and resting, with all these materials that she had collected, she started putting them into these, or sandwiching them into these works. But what I want Jayashree to talk about is, where did this idea come? What inspired her to really have these backlit projections? Does it relate
Yes.
to something that, can you talk a little, can you
Yeah,
talk about that?
my father was a doctor, and from the tissue cell, that kind of slide he used to prepare, and used to see it through microscope. So that is where the light is from the back, and one can see more detail. So that was very much in my mind always, and I wanted to do it, but I didn't know how to do it. So that has become a kind of rectangular, that the scrolls were rectangular, and the light from the back. I think I could reach somewhere close to that kind of idea that I experienced it long time ago.
And
it gave me a amount of pleasure while doing this.
I'm sure, because before that you were doing opaque pasting of paper, isn't it? The works were opaque, what we saw in Berlin, or what we saw at the drawing center, or what we saw even in Cocoon. So so this must have taken time, and I'm sure you talked about it, how challenging it was to think about this translucency, and how to think about sandwiching these, even, little shrubs and, stem of a plant, or, things like that into the work. It almost looks as if, you have resurrected nature into it, But besides that, I remember very interestingly, when we were actually trying to figure out light, which was so challenging in the rotunda, and especially with constraints of different kinds, to how to really find solutions to really have this backlit projection. It became apparent that you were interested in this interior scape, this interior view of the body, or the interior view of whatever that you had put in, and you talked at length to me about, sometimes when you put these straws and strings, they merge and hide and become very gentle to touch. But there are also times where you can feel them like swollen veins, of the body. They stand out because they just come out of the paper, and they're almost like, they are like veins, of aging people, or people who are suffering, or, at that particular point of time, you also mentioned in passing about nursing both your parents who were ill, and your preoccupation with death, in one sense, the whole idea of death. This, from childhood, you had seen bloom and decay, you had understood the seasonal cycles, you knew things like that, but you also knew about rebirthing of nature, which was such an interesting phenomena, that nature has this regenerative potential, and it gives hope to us, that even, sometimes we feel that even if we destroy it, it's going to come back, it's going to be there, it might flower again, it may bloom again. But you were seeing something which was coming to an end, in your parents, and the use of gauze, the kind of abrasions that the kind of wounds that you had to heal, you were healing, that gentility, the need for repair, the need to mend and heal became so predominant. And I remember at some point you sharing that in this, there were a lot of medicinal herbs, that you used, isn't it? Which was and I think Calcutta is a great center for Ayurveda. They believe in jadi buti, they believe in, what herbs can do for you in terms of mending and healing. So let's see some more images and we'll keep talking about it. Okay, this is something that that's totally Jayashree's domain. She's up there on the left with our friends, two friends who helped us, do this challenging installation. So this is the rotunda ceiling, and the work has begun, and the insect is now being prepared, okay, or is being made. Next. Here is the spine or the armature. And we can see Abhijit as well, and Jayashree all at work. It was quite an interesting time, isn't it?
Yeah, it was very interesting, very
Even
exciting.
very exciting, and
Very,
spending the whole day thinking how much, okay, how will it dangle, how will it get suspended, what will be the balance, how much chain to add, how much not to add. I remember all those on-site conversations that were happening. Next, please. So this is how it looked like, isn't it? You
yeah.
could actually enter this space of wonder and of really to marvel at. You come inside. Everyone who came inside, they actually, it was an immersive experience. I think you wanted that the viewer's body must have these extrasensorial experiences. We had They could actually smell the fragrance or the aroma of the earth.
Yes.
We had that also there. There was illumination, there was sparkle of the glowworms. There were very intricate drawings. There were a lot of details there that could be felt, seen, touched, up close. Very, very fascinating project this was.
In this
Yeah.
show, the
Yeah.
first time I experienced that, yes, what work can look like with the right kind of space, light,
Hmm.
and curators' input, everything together, what it can make. Like, I had no idea. I was creating the work, but all together, that what shape it can take, and that this is the first time that I experienced.
You're right, but I think such projects become very collaborative projects between the artist and the curator. It's
Yes.
not just one person, because it's completely peculiar new thing. You had your own idiosyncrasies in the way that you conceived this work, and I was looking at the rotunda with its pure, clear geometry and symmetry, and then this kind of an irregular, uneven form there. That contrast was so appealing, in the way that you thought about it and in the way that it was experienced there. In fact, if you remember, the very first day at the opening, there was a performance there, isn't it?
I do remember so many times.
Yes,
I
it
came to
was.
Kolkata to see that how it is progressing. And so many times in Akar Prakar we installed it. Uh, when I did 2 scrolls, I installed it here to see whether it's working or not. And especially when I was creating this cave-like insects nest.
Yeah.
That point, I think. I don't remember how many times, at least 20 times at least we installed it. And
Yes.
sometimes you also came and you
Yeah.
told me that I should make it even a little, extend it
Yeah.
a little more. So
Yeah.
those things are so important.
Right.
And we actually, 4 of us, almost like we were putting
Yes.
our
Our
ideas.
best there. In
Yeah.
fact, one of the viewers, I still remember the visitor's comment, and I must share here that she said, so there is Monet's nature or Monet's garden, and this is Jayashree's garden, Jayashree's nature, which was really wonderful. So there was a lot of, I think the response was really very interesting. It came with comments, and, it came with a lot of, love. Next, please. Some details here. Oh, there are innumerable, I mean, there are details and details. There is so much work gone in here. I don't know how Jayashree does it all by herself. Yeah, I just keep wishing her a lot of strength and energy. Next. 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 A lot of material, some of the material that has gone into these scrolls. I have a very interesting story to tell, that when I went to see these scrolls at Jayashree's studio, she was sitting on one of them. Okay. So I was quite taken aback, and she called me and I said, no, I'm not going to step on your scroll. But she, her work, because she just she rolls it out on the floor, and she works there. She literally lives in that work. Her body is fully immersed in the work. She can do her yoga there. She will do her meditation there. She absolutely is one with the work. I found that really something, that she could actually, and then when the time came, this iron lady just picked up the scroll, dragged it, and she was saying, no, I'm going to just put it up there, for you to see. Fascinating, the kind of material also that was lying in buckets there, that, as you can see, all this that goes into the making of these scrolls. Next, please. And then we come to something so delicate, so intricate, Jayashree, in your drawings. I mean, shelters. This is, I think, the Baya bird, isn't it? The nest of those birds, which are, again, I mean, your fascination with nests and cocoons and shelters and habitat. But what I find very, very fascinating about these drawings, these works, which you now continue to do, is the way that you are stroking the surface, the way that you are working these very intricate, very intricately weaving these drawings. In fact, you talked about roots and stems, but it's completely a wired ecology, isn't it? You're moving from roots to stems, from twigs to creepers, you keep moving, and connecting those, in the way that these drawings emerge. Next, let us see one or two more, and maybe you can talk about it. Next. Yeah, this one is at the Kiranada Museum of Art in the exhibition Abstracting Nature, which is on. It's Jayashree with Mrinalini Mukherjee, and it's focused on their their preferences for organic material and their emphasis on drawing. Fluttering lines. Can you talk a little bit about this? Because I just like the very ethereal, it's a very airy feel these works have, unlike the other works,
I never did drawings before in this way. Very small drawings I used to do. But when I started doing drawings, using pencil, and the paper is the medium, and it's like as if like all these lines since so long has been with me, and it was coming out so spontaneously. I was really surprised that I never knew that I can draw in this way. And the size that was not the problem at all for me, and I just went on and on. So many things came. Imagery became like it was not that I was trying to do something. It was just coming. So that was an experience altogether.
Yes.
I could use colors. And mainly it's all pencil. Mainly I use pencil and maybe some charcoal or something. That's all.
Yeah. Next, please. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Amazing. The energy and the way that, the sense of movement, it has air, atmosphere, it has everything. It has light. Next, please. Expanded roots. Tea stains.
This is a canvas work.
Yeah, but it's a canvas work, yes.
But I used everything like possible.
But it
Cotton,
comes very close to some form that you can see in nature. Absolutely, you could see it, you know. Next, please. Roots, they are currently on display. I think it's a very, very sensitive and beautiful work. The image does not do any justice to the work, I must say. They are huge scrolls and they are lit from behind, but they are so sensitive, they're so delicate. You just see skeins and veins and just so beautiful. Absolutely. Next, please. This is what is shown at Abstracting Nature at KNM Saket. This is from the ongoing exhibition. It's another iteration of Earth as Heaven. Next, please. This is one of the installation shots. You see also on the right side all the material that Jayashree uses. That's roots, and that is Mrinalini Mukherjee's one of the first work in jute, in fiber. Squirrel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next, please. Next, please. We're going to now talk about a work that is being shown currently under the Asia Week at KNM in Noida, in the Noida space. And the sister work is shown right now at the Asian Art Museum in San Francisco. And I requested Abby Chen, the curator, to share with me this little video clipping. So let's start with the San Francisco work. There are two artists show, and the Asian Art Museum is showing two contemporary artists. It's called Memento, Jayashree, or they have called it? The exhibition is called Memento. Yeah. Okay. It's very interesting that both these works are actually in public space right at the same time, isn't it? And these were the only two works of this size and scale that you have made, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. I want to thank Abby for sharing this.
Yes.
And I hope I can see it actually in its physical form. Okay. Seems to be jumping. Abby says, you too must come. And now the installation shots of Unfoldings, the route map of experience, which is right now currently on for a month in Noida. Okay, let's see some images as you enter. Next, please. Next. So Jayashree, tell us, what were you trying to do? This is a 60 feet long work.
I was trying to paint.
Yes, and what were you wanting from this experience, you know, of having these huge scrolls turn into a structure, a standing structure on the ground?
Actually, when you go inside, you can feel that there is a space for yourself. Like it's a space that the painting is all around. It's a painted space that one can be inside, and it's a kind of that you can see so many imageries, like as if whatever the visual thing that you experience, you can see like flowing there. And then if you sit inside, then there is a quietness. And that is what I feel, that it's a meditative space also, because so many chaos is happening everywhere, all around. But even then, you find your own space to concentrate and be quiet and be there. So, and all around it also, there is the land, the way we see. I try to draw those in the outer layer. So it's like when you go around out from outer area, you can see the land, and the color is also, I have used it orange and blackish colors.
Yes.
So
it comes very close to colors of natural shelters, you know, where you have gypsum and red ochre and soot and other things like in caves, but it also has colors of building materials like, you know, brick and you know, cement and limestone and things like that. You're very true. When it's a space, it's a very interesting work, an extraordinary work in many ways. When you enter, you are engulfed within this space, you know. So you are entering a space which is which actually you know, withdraws you from everything else, and you know, takes you in, and you're right there in there, comforted by being with yourself. Okay, you're engulfed, you are sheltered, you can use as many words, but what is happening there around is very interesting. You have this I think you told me in a very interesting way that you always wanted a surface which was like a continuous wall, you know, a surface that never ends, you know. And so though you didn't have a studio 50-60 feet, you know, long, you actually created this handmade paper scroll of 60 feet, rolling it and rolling out every day while you worked on it on both sides.
Yes.
Wow. And you were actually again, as you do, there is this, the textures are so interesting in this work, you know, in the way that you have created, you have crumpled paper, you've created wreckage somewhere, ruptures somewhere, you know, you've created some hiding spaces, you know, all that is happening within the surface, you know, as you are as you're working with how you are putting these pieces of paper together and creating the scroll. Also, it has acquired a very rock-like presence, you know. It's, I mean, I think when people enter, they don't realize that this is paper, or this is paper scroll that you're seeing. So it has turned, it has taken the firmness and the solidity of, you know, building material or building environment, you know, built environment or a habitat in that sense. And, you know, this whole accumulated experiences of yours, everything that you've gathered, you know, how it just comes out in its own, with its own logic, you know, and both sides you are experiencing. You go in, there is something else, you navigate and you circumambulate the work, you have another feeling. I've also realized, Jayashree, that scale is so extremely important in your work. It's not about just monumentality. It's not just about this kind of a presence. It is so much about, you know, scaling your emotions, scaling your memories, you know. You want to scale them, you know, and in that scaling, you play with, you know, intimate scales, and, you know, there is a play on distance and proximity. There are things that really invite you and ask you to come closer and see those little details. And there are things that you want to go back, you know, and look from a distance, you know, those big maps and those charts that you have drawn on the outside of this work. Next, please. This is not a good reproduction in the sense of the colors and everything is wrong. I just wanted, you know, to give a sense of how you move in. Next, please. Yeah, something that you see from outside, you know. And if you go close, you might see many more things. You may see a heart, you may see a face, which is a witness to something. You may see the globe, you may see a city, you may just see many, many things, you know. It's unfolding and unfoldings of various kinds, you know. It's so I would like to say that you have a sense, or you work, you know, your whole practice, you know, celebrates prolonged working. You work and you work and you work. And I think the same is demanded of the viewer. The viewer who really is interested, and you are interested only in those who are interested, maybe, you are interested that the viewer must immerse in it, you know, must spend time. If not a prolonged time, at least a time where they are going to really pay attention to what all has tumbled out of your subconscious into the work, you know. Next, please. Just look at these details. And you have used a lot of text in this work. I want you to talk about it.
Yes, there is like map from the map making thing that I have taken, and then also the phrenology. There is like long time ago the way they used to read the brain. So there are several terms they have used. So that I have used in the work.
Right. Next,
It was
please.
very interesting, actually.
Yes. Wow. That is Kiran having a look at the work with me and Reena Lat. Next. I think that's the end, and we are going to just play a small video clipping for when Asta Debu performed in Bombay in front of Jayashree's Earth as Heaven work.
Oh.
Is that it? Hello? That was really a...
It was not half minute. It was few only like a second.
Avigna? I think it has stopped.
Yeah,
something is wrong with the video?
No, it has played. It has played.
Yes. I see. So that was a very short clipping, but it was really amazing to see Asta Debu's passion while he performed in front of the work. And this is a very small tribute to him. Thank you very much, Jayashree. This was as fascinating as it is to talk to you, and really continue our conversation, you know. And thank you all the viewers. I think there are some questions and comments. We shall send them to Jayashree, or if they are directed to me, I can answer them. But we have overshot the time. And so thank you all. Thank you very much. Thank you, Reena, Akar Prakar, Reena and Abhijit. And thank you, Avigna, Priya, Hari, Jijo, all my team. Thank you very much for this Thank you, Jayashree, and all the viewers. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah. No. Oh, ये है questions हो.
बाद में आपको